You're losing money every single day without even noticing it. Because right now, hidden in your pocket, in your wallet, or even under your couch, could be a coin worth more than most people's cars. And the crazy part? Nobody believes this until they see it for themselves. There are Washington quarters sitting in circulation that look completely normal, no shine, no special markings at first glance. But collectors are quietly paying life-changing money for them. This is not a rumor, not a trick, and not something rarely seen in theory. It's happening right now, while people are spending them for 25 cents. Before it's too late, you need to understand what you've been ignoring. Most people will watch this and dismiss it, but that tiny detail you've never checked could be the difference between pocket change and a silent fortune. This isn't just interesting, this is a warning, because every second you wait, these coins are disappearing back into circulation, and once they're gone, they're gone. Most people would throw this coin into a vending machine without even blinking, and that's exactly why it's so dangerous. The 1964 Washington quarter, without a mint mark, looks ordinary, almost boring. But that quiet, dull surface is hiding something most people completely miss. And here's the scary part. This coin exists in places you'd never expect. Old jars, inherited boxes, loose change, and people are spending it like it's nothing. This is not fiction. This is real money slipping through people's fingers every single day. Now let's go back to 1964 for a second, because this year wasn't just another year in American history, it was chaos for coin production. The United States was facing a massive silver shortage, and the government was under extreme pressure. People were hoarding coins, melting them down, and the U.S. Mint was rushing to produce as many quarters as possible before switching away from silver entirely. That pressure? It created coins that weren't meant to last. But somehow, a few survived. And those survivors are now worth a fortune. What makes this specific 1964 quarter without a mint mark so intense isn't just the year, it's the story behind how it was made. No mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia, where production was pushed to its limits. Machines were running hot, dies were wearing down fast, and quality control wasn't what it should have been. Under that kind of stress, coins developed subtle characteristics, tiny details that today's collectors obsess over like treasure hunters chasing gold. Take a closer look at the design. On the front, you've got George Washington's profile, strong, calm, almost unaware of the storm happening behind the scenes during that year. The word liberty curves above, "In God we trust," sits to the left, and the date 1964 rests below. Flip it over, and the eagle spreads its wings with power, clutching arrows and olive branches, surrounded by United States of America and quarter dollar. It looks normal, but it's not. This detail changes everything. This coin is made of 90% silver and 10% copper, giving it a weight of about 6.25 grams. The diameter sits at 24.3 millimeters, with a thickness around 1.75 millimeters. The reeded edge, what collectors sometimes call the girth texture, feels sharp and defined on well-preserved pieces. But here's the catch. Coins that still have that crisp edge today are extremely rare. Most have been worn down, damaged, or worse, cleaned. And cleaning? That's a disaster. If you clean this coin even slightly, you destroy its value instantly. That natural toning, that dark, uneven surface, even the dirt, that's not damage. That's history. That's proof the coin survived decades untouched. Original condition is everything. It's the difference between a coin worth a few dollars and one worth hundreds of thousands. Do not clean it, ever. Now here's where things get intense. In fine condition, Without any flashy errors or dramatic features, this exact coin has reached auction values around $239,000. Let that sink in. A quarter, 25 cents, turning into serious money. Hidden wealth, silent fortune. And collectors? They're not casually buying these. They're hunting them. Quietly. Aggressively. Sometimes without even letting the public know what they paid. Collectors fixate on the smallest details. The sharpness of Washington's hair, the depth of the eagle's feathers, the exact shade of silver toning. Some even study microscopic dye wear patterns to confirm authenticity. And when they find a real one, they don't sell it. They hold it. Because they know supply is shrinking and demand is only getting stronger. Here's what you needed to understand. Most of these coins didn't survive. They were spent, melted, damaged, or lost over time. The few that remain in collectible condition are becoming harder and harder to find. That's why patience matters. Smart collectors don't rush. They check every coin carefully. They look for original surfaces. They avoid common mistakes. And they always get professional grading before making any big move. So if you come across a 1964 Washington quarter with no mint mark, stop. Look at it closely. Feel its weight. Check the edges. Study the surface. Because you might be holding a life-changing opportunity in your hand without even realizing it. And whatever you do, do not spend this coin. But here's the twist. What's coming next makes this one look almost common. The next coin isn't just rare. It's something collectors lose sleep over. And once you see it, you'll understand why missing it could be the biggest mistake you ever make. You've probably seen this coin before. Maybe it looked dull, a little dark, even worn out, and you ignored it. That's exactly how this one hides. The 1941 Washington quarter with no mint mark doesn't scream for attention. It whispers. It blends in with ordinary change. And that's why it's so dangerous. Because while it looks like something you'd spend without thinking, collectors see something completely different. They see quiet wealth. They see a silent fortune sitting right there in plain sight, and most people never even look twice. Now step into 1941 for a moment, because this year wasn't calm. It was building tension. The United States was on the edge of entering World War II, and everything was shifting. Industry was ramping up, resources were tightening, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce coins faster and in higher volumes than ever before. That urgency changed everything. Coins from this year weren't just currency, they were products of a nation preparing for global conflict. And under that kind of pressure, something subtle but powerful happened. The details started to shift. This particular quarter, struck in Philadelphia with no mint mark, carries that hidden story. At first glance, it's just George Washington facing left, with liberty above his head, "In God We Trust" tucked beside him, and the date 1941 sitting below. But look closer, because most people miss this. The sharpness of the lettering, the spacing, the way the light hits the surface, these are the things collectors obsess over. Flip the coin, and the eagle spreads its wings across the reverse, strong but slightly softened by time, clutching arrows and olive branches, surrounded by United States of America and quarter dollar. It looks simple, but it's not. What makes this coin even more intense is what it's made of. 90% silver, 10% copper. That's real intrinsic value, not modern plated metal, not cheap alloy. It weighs around 6.25 grams, with a diameter of about 24.3 millimeters and a thickness close to 1.75 millimeters. The reeded edge, the girth texture, should feel consistent, not smoothed down. And here's where things get serious. Most surviving coins from this era have lost that sharpness. Years of circulation, friction, and careless handling have erased those tiny details. But when one still holds them, that's when collectors lean in. And here's the part most people get wrong. They try to clean it. They see dirt, darkness, toning, and they think it needs to be fixed. That mistake destroys everything. That natural aging, that uneven color, that slightly dark silver tone, that's not damage. That's authenticity. That's proof the coin survived untouched. The moment you clean it, you strip away its history, and with it, its value. Never clean this coin, not even a little. Now think about how many of these were originally made. Millions. But survival, that's a completely different story. Over decades, these coins were spent, lost, melted for silver, or damaged beyond recognition. The number of pieces that still exist today in collectible, fine condition is shrinking every single year. And collectors know it. That's why they don't hesitate when they find one that checks all the boxes. They move fast, quietly, aggressively. What really drives the obsession is the subtlety. There's no flashy error here, no dramatic mistake screaming for attention. This is pure, original rarity, the kind that hides in plain sight, the kind that only trained eyes recognize. Collectors will examine the smallest details, the feather definition on the eagle, the contour of Washington's jawline, the spacing in the lettering. Even the way the coin reflects light can signal whether it's been altered or preserved naturally. This detail changes everything. And when a genuine 1941 no mint mark quarter in fine condition surfaces, it doesn't sit around. Auctions for coins like this aren't loud, they're intense. Bidders watch closely, waiting for the right moment. Then suddenly offers come in fast, competitive, emotional, because they know what they're looking at isn't just a coin, it's a shrinking piece of history that's getting harder to find by the day. Today, this coin has reached market values around $271,000. Let that hit you. A coin most people would spend without a second thought, turning into serious money. Life-changing opportunity, hidden wealth. And the scariest part? People are still spending these every single day without realizing what they're losing. So what should you do if you find one? First, stop. Don't rush. Don't assume it's nothing. Check for the missing mint mark. Look closely at the date. Feel the weight in your hand. Examine the edges. And most importantly, protect it. No cleaning, no polishing, no fixing. Keep it exactly as it is. Then, get it professionally graded. That step alone can confirm whether you're holding something ordinary or something extraordinary. Smart collectors don't chase hype. They watch quietly, learn patterns, and wait for the right moment. They understand that patience creates wealth in this world. One mistake, one careless decision can erase thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. Most people miss this. Don't be one of them. Because here's the truth. This coin is already rare. But what's coming next? It's on a completely different level. The next quarter isn't just valuable. It's the kind of coin that turns collectors into competitors overnight. And if you thought missing this one was bad, what comes next could be the biggest loss of all. It's the kind of coin most people actually avoid. Dark, almost black, a little rough-looking, something you'd probably push aside without thinking twice. But that exact look, that's the trap. The 1959 Washington quarter with a D mint mark and that deep black layer isn't damaged the way people assume. It's aged. And in the world of serious collectors, that kind of untouched surface can signal something far more valuable than a shiny, cleaned coin. This is where people make their biggest mistake. They see ugly and they spend it. They don't realize they're throwing away something that could quietly change their financial future. Now rewind to 1959, because this wasn't just another random year. America was in the middle of a powerful economic expansion, but behind that growth was intense industrial pressure. The Denver Mint, marked by that small D on the coin, was pushing out massive quantities of quarters to keep up with demand. Machines were running long hours, dies were being used beyond their ideal lifespan, and subtle inconsistencies started appearing. Not dramatic errors, but tiny shifts in strike quality, surface texture, and metal behavior that today's collectors analyze like forensic experts. This coin carries that history in a way you can actually see and feel. On the front, George Washington's profile stands firm, with liberty stretching above and "In God We Trust" positioned just beside him. The date 1959 sits below, often slightly softened depending on the strike. But what really pulls attention, if you know what you're looking for, is how the surface reacts to light. That black layer, that deep toning, isn't random. It's the result of decades of natural oxidation on a silver-rich coin that hasn't been disturbed. Flip it over, and the eagle spreads its wings across the reverse, with United States of America and quarter dollar framing the design. The details might look muted at first glance, but they're not gone. They're preserved under that layer, and this is where things get serious. This quarter is made from 90% silver and 10% copper, giving it a solid, unmistakable feel. It weighs around 6.25 grams, with a diameter of 24.3 millimeters and a thickness close to 1.75 millimeters. The edge, its reeded girth, should still have a consistent texture if it hasn't been overly worn. When you hold it, there's a density to it, a presence that modern coins just don't have. But here's the twist. That black layer can fool people into thinking the coin is damaged or worthless, when in reality it might be the very reason collectors want it. Because in this world, original condition is everything. That dark toning, that slightly uneven color, even the subtle patches of silver peeking through, that's authenticity. That's proof the coin hasn't been cleaned, polished, or altered. The moment someone tries to improve it, wipe it, scrub it, brighten it, they erase decades of natural history. And with that, they destroy the very thing that made it valuable. Never clean this coin. Not once. Not lightly. Not ever. Now think about survival. Millions of these coins were minted in Denver. But how many still exist today in this kind of preserved, naturally toned condition? Very few. Most were circulated heavily, losing their detail. Others were cleaned by well-meaning owners who didn't understand what they had. And many were melted down for their silver content over the years. What's left now is a shrinking pool of coins that still carry their original surfaces, and collectors are watching closely. The D Mint mark itself becomes a point of obsession. It's small, easy to miss, but it tells a story. Coins from Denver in 1959 often show subtle differences in strike and finish compared to other mints. Collectors will study the exact placement of that mint mark, the sharpness of its edges, even how it interacts with the surrounding metal. This isn't casual interest, it's deep, almost obsessive attention to detail. Because they know one small difference can mean everything. And when a coin like this appears in the market, especially with that untouched black layer intact, it creates tension. Auctions don't always explode with noise, but the competition is real. Quiet bidders, calculated moves. People who've been waiting for this exact type of coin to surface. Because once it's gone into a private collection, it might not come back out for years, maybe decades. This is not fiction. Today, this 1959 with D Washington quarter, with its natural black toning in fine condition, has reached market values around $127, zeroth That's serious money hiding behind a surface most people would ignore. A silent fortune sitting in plain sight. And the truth is, coins like this are still out there. In drawers, in jars, in old collections people haven't checked in years. So, what should you do? First, don't judge the coin by its color. That dark surface might be the most important feature it has. Check for the D mint mark. Look at the date. Tilt it under light. See how the toning shifts. Feel the weight. And if something feels different, trust that instinct. Then protect it. No cleaning, no rubbing, no shortcuts. Get it professionally graded, because that step can confirm whether you're holding something ordinary or something extraordinary. Most people miss this because they're looking for shine. But real collectors, they're looking for truth, original surfaces, untouched history. That's where the real value lives. And patience, that's what separates someone who spends a coin from someone who builds wealth from it. Because what's coming next, it doesn't just hide behind color or condition. The next coin is something people have literally held in their hands and still walked away from a fortune without realizing it. And once you see why, you're never going to look at your coins the same way again. There's a very specific kind of coin people throw away mentally before they even touch it. The one that looks dirty, brown, worn down, like it's been through decades of neglect. And that's exactly where this story begins. The 1964 Washington quarter with a D mint mark and that deep brown layer doesn't look impressive. It looks forgotten. But that dirty surface, that's where the danger is. Because what most people see as damage, collectors see as untouched history. And every single day, people are spending this coin without realizing they just let go of something that could have changed everything. Now think about the timing. 1964, this was the breaking point for silver coinage in the United States. The government was under pressure like never before. Silver prices were rising, people were hoarding coins, and the mint was in a race against time. This was the final year quarters were made with real silver before everything changed. Denver, marked by that small D, was running at full capacity. Machines were pushed harder, dies wore out faster, and coins came out with subtle differences, tiny fingerprints of stress that today's collectors chase like treasure. When you look at this coin closely, the design tells a deeper story. On the front, George Washington's profile still carries authority, even if the details are softened by time. Liberty stretches above, slightly muted in some areas, while In God We Trust sits beside his portrait, sometimes blending into the toning. The date 1964 anchors the coin at the bottom, quiet but powerful, because it marks the end of an era. Flip it over, and the eagle spreads its wings, bold yet softened, clutching arrows and olive branches, surrounded by United States of America and $quarter. It looks worn, but that wear is part of its survival story. And then there's that brown layer. This is where most people completely misread the coin. They see dirt. They see discoloration. But what they're actually looking at is natural toning, decades of chemical reactions between the silver and the environment. This is not something you can recreate. This is not something you can fake easily. It builds slowly over time, and when it's original, it becomes one of the most important features of the coin. This detail changes everything. The composition itself is solid, 90% silver, 10% copper, giving the coin a weight of about 6.25 grams. The diameter measures roughly 24.3 millimeters, with a thickness around 1.75 millimeters. The reeded edge or girth texture should still show definition if it hasn't been completely worn down. When you hold it, there's a heaviness, a density that feels different from modern coins. But if that edge is still sharp under a layer of toning, that's when collectors start paying attention. Here's where people make a mistake that costs them everything. They try to clean it. They think they're helping. They see that brown layer and assume it's dirt that needs to be removed. The moment they do that, the coin loses its identity. That natural surface, that original toning, gets stripped away forever. And once it's gone, it's gone. No serious collector wants a cleaned coin. It destroys trust, it destroys authenticity, and it destroys value. Never clean this coin, no matter how tempting it feels. Now consider survival. Yes, millions were minted in Denver in 1964. But that doesn't mean millions still exist in collectible condition. Many were melted down when silver prices surged. Others were spent endlessly wearing down their details until they became unrecognizable. And coins with this kind of original, untouched brown toning, those are even rarer because most people couldn't resist fixing them. What's left today is a small group of survivors, and collectors know it. The D mint mark becomes a focal point. It's small, but it carries weight. Collectors study its placement, its sharpness, its relationship to the surrounding design. They look at how the toning interacts with it, whether it's evenly covered or partially exposed. These are not casual observations. These are the kinds of details that separate an average coin from one that commands serious attention. And when a coin like this appears in the market, especially with that original brown layer still intact, it creates a quiet kind of chaos. Bidders don't always shout, but they watch closely. They wait. And then, when the moment is right, they move fast. Because they understand something most people don't. Once a coin like this enters a strong collection, it might disappear from the market for years, maybe longer. Today, this 1964 with D Washington quarter with its natural brown toning in fine condition has reached market values around $192,000. That's not small money. That's a life-changing opportunity hiding behind a surface most people would ignore. Hidden wealth, silent fortune. And the scariest part? People are still spending these coins like they're nothing more than pocket change. So if you ever come across one, stop immediately. Don't rush. Don't judge it by its color. Look for that D mint mark. Study the date. Tilt it under light and watch how the surface reacts. Feel the weight in your hand. And if something feels different, trust that feeling. Then protect it. Keep it exactly as you found it. And get it professionally graded, because that's the only way to confirm what you truly have. Collectors who succeed in this world aren't lucky. They're patient. They pay attention. They understand that what looks ordinary to everyone else might actually be extraordinary. And they never make the mistake of altering a coin that's survived this long on its own. Because what's coming next, it doesn't rely on color or condition to hide its value. The next coin is something people have seen, touched, and still completely overlooked. And once you realize what makes it special, you'll understand why missing it could be one of the biggest mistakes of your life. There's a moment that separates someone who spends a coin from someone who spots a fortune. And it usually happens in less than a second. You glance at a quarter, see nothing special, and it's gone. Into a cashier's hand, a vending machine, or lost somewhere forever. The 1957 Washington quarter with no mint mark lives in that exact moment. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't shine like a brand new coin. It just sits there, quiet, ordinary, overlooked. And that's why it's one of the most dangerous coins to ignore. Now step into 1957 because this year carried a different kind of pressure. America was deep in the Cold War era, technology racing forward, industry expanding fast, and the demand for coinage rising with a growing economy. The Philadelphia Mint, which produced coins without a mint mark, was working at scale. Machines ran longer, dies wore gradually, and coins came out with subtle variations that weren't meant to stand out at the time. But today, those small differences have become everything. When you first look at this coin, it feels familiar. George Washington's profile dominates the front, calm and composed, with liberty arching above his head. "In God We Trust" sits just beside his portrait, and the date 1957 rests below, often slightly softened in fine condition. Flip it over, and the eagle spreads its wings across the reverse, gripping arrows and olive branches, framed by United States of America and $quarter. Nothing about it screams rare, and that's exactly the point. Because collectors don't chase obvious, they chase subtle. They look at how the design holds up under wear. They study the spacing of the letters, the sharpness of the eagle's feathers, the way Washington's hair detail fades or survives. Even in fine condition, where the coin shows clear signs of circulation, there are still details that matter deeply. This detail changes everything. The coin's composition adds another layer to the story. 90% silver, 10% copper, real metal, real weight. Around 6.25 grams in your hand, with a diameter of about 24.3 millimeters and a thickness close to 1.75 millimeters. The edge, with its reeded girth texture, should still show some definition if it hasn't been completely worn down. When you hold it, it feels different from modern coins. Denser, more solid, like it carries more than just its physical weight. But here's where people make a costly mistake. They underestimate it because it's not perfect. Fine condition means the coin has been used. It has history. It has wear. And for someone who doesn't understand coins, that wear looks like damage. So they ignore it, or worse, they try to clean it. And the moment they do that, they destroy what makes it valuable. That natural surface, that slight dullness, that authentic aging, those are not flaws. That's the coin's identity. Never clean this coin. Not under any circumstances. Now think about survival. Yes, millions of 1,957 quarters were minted in Philadelphia. But how many still exist today in genuine, untouched fine condition? Not nearly as many as you'd think. Over time, coins were spent repeatedly, worn down further, or melted for their silver content. Others were altered by people who didn't realize what they had. The number of original survivors keeps shrinking, and collectors are watching that number drop every year. What makes the no-mint mark even more intriguing is its quiet origin. Philadelphia coins often blend into the background because they lack that small, identifying letter. But for serious collectors, that absence becomes a point of focus. They examine the coin more closely, looking for characteristics unique to that mint's production style in that year. It's not about what's obvious, it's about what's hidden. And when a 1957 no mint mark quarter in honest fine condition surfaces in the market, it doesn't stay unnoticed for long. Auctions can turn intense quickly. Not loud, not chaotic, but focused. Determined. Bidders who understand the coin's rarity move with purpose. Because they know something most people don't. Once a coin like this enters a strong collection, it might not come back out for a very long time. Today, this coin has reached market values around $182,000. That's serious money hiding behind a design people see every day. Hidden wealth, silent fortune. And the truth is, people are still spending these coins without even realizing it. Every single day, opportunities like this slip through unnoticed. So what should you do if you find one? First, slow down. Don't rush to judgment. Check the date, 1957. Look for the absence of a mint mark. Study the condition carefully. Even in fine condition, details matter. Feel the weight, examine the edge, and most importantly, leave it exactly as it is. No cleaning, no polishing, no shortcuts. Then take the next step, professional grading. That's where the real confirmation happens. Collectors who succeed in this world understand one thing clearly: patience creates wealth. They don't chase perfection, they recognize authenticity. They don't destroy coins trying to make them look better. They preserve what time has already protected. And they know that sometimes the most valuable coins are the ones that look the most ordinary. Because what's coming next, it doesn't just blend in. It hides in a way that almost guarantees people will miss it. And when you see why collectors are obsessed with it, you might start checking every single coin you touch from now on. There's a version of this coin that almost disappears in plain sight. Not shiny, not eye-catching, just a cold grey surface that looks like it's been sitting around forever. And that's exactly why people miss it. The 1941 Washington quarter with no mint mark, and that soft grey layer doesn't look exciting. It looks forgettable. But that quiet, aged appearance is where the real story hides. Because what most people call dull, collectors recognize as untouched, original, and incredibly important. And every day, coins like this are being spent like nothing. Now go back to 1941, because this year carries a weight most coins don't. The United States was on the brink of entering World War II, and the entire country was shifting. Industry was accelerating, resources were being redirected, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to keep coins flowing into circulation. Philadelphia, operating without mint marks, was pushing out massive numbers of quarters. But under that pressure, subtle changes began to appear. Dies wore down, strikes softened, and coins developed unique characteristics that weren't meant to stand out. But today, they absolutely do. At first glance, the design feels familiar. George Washington's profile faces left, steady and composed, with liberty above and in God we trust positioned beside him. The date 1941 sits below, sometimes slightly blended into the coin's surface depending on where. Flip it over, and the eagle spreads its wings across the reverse, gripping arrows and olive branches, surrounded by United States of America and quarter dollar. It's a design people have seen countless times, and that's exactly why they overlook it. But here's where things change. That grey layer, subtle, even, almost lifeless at first glance, is actually a sign of natural toning. Over decades, the silver in the coin reacts with its environment, creating this muted surface that collectors look for. It's not bright, it's not flashy, but it's honest. It tells you the coin hasn't been cleaned, hasn't been tampered with, hasn't been improved. And in this world, that honesty is everything. This detail changes everything. The coin itself is built from 90% silver and 10% copper, giving it a weight of around 6.25 grams. The diameter measures about 24.3 millimeters, with a thickness close to 1.75 millimeters. The reeded edge, the girth texture, should still have some definition if the coin hasn't been overly worn. When you hold it, there's a solid, unmistakable feel that modern coins just don't have. It's heavier, more grounded, like it carries decades of history in your hand. Now here's the mistake that costs people the most. They try to clean it. That grey tone gets mistaken for dirt or tarnish that needs to be removed. But the moment you clean it, you erase the very thing that proves its authenticity. That natural surface, that soft grey color, that slightly uneven texture, that's what collectors want. Once it's gone, it can't be replaced. And the coin, it loses its appeal instantly. Never clean this coin, not even gently. Think about how many of these were made, and then think about how many survived. Over the years, countless 1,941 quarters were spent repeatedly, wearing down their details until they became almost unrecognizable. Others were melted for their silver content, especially during times when silver prices spiked. And many were cleaned by people who didn't understand what they were holding. What's left today is a much smaller number of coins that still carry their original surfaces, and those are the ones collectors chase. The absence of a mint mark becomes a quiet but powerful detail. Philadelphia coins often blend into the background because they don't have that extra letter. But for collectors, that absence is part of the puzzle. They study the strike quality, the surface texture, the way the design elements hold up under wear. They're not just looking at the coin, they're reading it. And when a 1,941 no mint mark quarter with that natural grey toning appears in the market, it creates a very specific kind of attention. Not loud, not obvious, but focused. Experienced collectors recognize it immediately. They understand that coins like this don't show up often in honest, untouched condition. And when they do, competition builds quietly. People watch. They wait. And then they act. Today, this coin has reached market values around $118,000. That's serious money hiding behind a surface most people would ignore. A silent fortune sitting in plain sight. And the reality is, coins like this are still out there. In drawers, in jars, mixed in with everyday change, completely unnoticed. So what should you do if you come across one? First, pause. Don't rush to spend it. Check the date. 1941. Look for the absence of a mint mark. Study the surface. Does it have that natural grey tone? Feel the weight, examine the edges, and trust your instincts if something feels different. Then protect it. Keep it exactly as it is. No cleaning, no polishing, no shortcuts. And most importantly, get it professionally graded. That's how you confirm what you really have. Collectors who succeed don't just look, they observe. They don't chase perfection. They recognize authenticity. And they understand that sometimes the most valuable coins are the ones that look the most ordinary. Because what's coming next, it doesn't just hide in plain sight, it disguises itself in a way that almost guarantees people will overlook it. And when you realize what makes it special, you'll start questioning every single coin you've ever spent. There's a dangerous illusion in coin collecting, the idea that if a coin looks normal, it must be worthless. And that illusion is exactly why the 1,956 Washington quarter with no mint mark slips through people's hands every single day. It doesn't look rare. It doesn't demand attention. It just sits there, quiet, ordinary, forgettable. And in that moment of hesitation, people lose something they never even realized they had. This is the kind of coin that hides in plain sight and punishes anyone who ignores it. Now step into 1,956, because this year carries a subtle kind of pressure most people don't think about. America was booming. Post-war expansion, rising consumer demand, more money moving through the system than ever before. And that meant one thing for the US. Mint, produce more coins faster. Philadelphia, operating without mint marks, was pushing out massive volumes. But speed comes with consequences. Dies wear down, details soften, and small inconsistencies start to appear. Not obvious mistakes, but quiet variations that today's collectors study like clues. When you look at this coin, it feels familiar. George Washington's profile on the obverse stands firm, with liberty arcing above his head and "In God We Trust" positioned beside him. The date 1,956 rests below, sometimes slightly softened depending on how the coin was struck and how it circulated. Flip it over, and the eagle spreads its wings across the reverse, dripping arrows and olive branches framed by United States of America and quarter dollar. It's a design you've seen your whole life, and that's exactly why you might miss it. But collectors don't see ordinary, they see layers. They look at how the light moves across the surface. They study the edges of the lettering. They focus on the eagle's feather detail, even in fine condition. Because even when a coin has circulated, even when it shows wear, there are still markers, tiny signals, that reveal whether it's something special. This detail changes everything. The composition adds real weight to the story, literally. This coin is made of 90% silver and 10% copper, giving it a solid feel at around 6.25 grams. The diameter measures approximately 24.3 millimeters, and the thickness is about 1.75 millimeters. The reeded edge, the girth texture, should still show some definition if it hasn't been completely worn smooth. When you hold it, there's a density, a presence that modern coins simply don't have. It feels like it matters, because it does. Now here's where most people make the biggest mistake. They underestimate it because it's not perfect. Fine condition means the coin has lived a life. It's been used, handled, passed around. And to an untrained eye, that wear looks like damage. So they ignore it, or worse, they try to clean it. That's where everything goes wrong. The moment you clean this coin, you destroy the natural surface that proves its authenticity. That soft toning, that slightly muted finish, that's not a flaw. That's value. Never clean this coin. Not under any circumstances. Think about how many of these were minted, millions. But how many still exist today in genuine, original, fine condition? Far fewer than people realize. Over the years, coins like this were spent repeatedly, worn down further, or melted for their silver content. Others were altered by people trying to improve them. What's left now is a shrinking number of coins that still carry their original surfaces, and collectors know it. The absence of a mint mark becomes part of the mystery. Philadelphia coins don't have that extra letter to identify them quickly, which makes them easier to overlook. But for collectors, that absence is a signal. They look closer. They analyze the strike quality, the surface texture, the way the design elements interact with the wear. It's not about what's obvious, it's about what's hidden. And when a 1956 no mint mark quarter in honest, fine condition appears in the market, it creates a quiet tension. Serious collectors recognize it immediately. They know coins like this don't show up often in untouched condition. And when they do, the competition builds quickly, focused, deliberate, intense. Because once a coin like this enters a strong collection, it might not come back out for years. Today, this coin has reached market values around $171,000. That's serious money hiding behind a design people see every day. Hidden wealth, silent fortune. And the reality is, people are still spending these coins without even realizing what they're losing. So what should you do if you come across one? First, stop. Don't rush. Check the date, 1956. Look for the absence of a mint mark. Study the surface carefully. Even in fine condition, details matter. Feel the weight, examine the edges, and trust your instincts if something feels different. Then protect it. No cleaning, no polishing, no shortcuts. Keep it exactly as it is. And take the next step, professional grading. That's how you confirm whether you're holding something ordinary or something extraordinary. Collectors who succeed don't rely on luck. They rely on attention. They understand that patience creates wealth. They know that what looks common to everyone else might actually be rare. And they never make the mistake of altering a coin that's survived this long on its own. Because what's coming next, it doesn't just hide in plain sight, it disguises itself in a way that almost guarantees it will be overlooked. And when you finally see what makes it special, you're going to realize just how many opportunities have already slipped through your hands. There's a coin out there that people trust too easily. They see the date, they see the wear, and they assume it's just another old piece of change. No second look, no hesitation. And that's exactly how the 1943 Washington quarter with an S mint mark slips away unnoticed. It doesn't look flashy. It doesn't try to impress you. But behind that quiet appearance is a story tied to one of the most intense moments in American history. And if you ignore it, you could be letting go of something far bigger than you realize. 1943 wasn't just any year. The United States was deep in World War II, and everything from steel to copper to manpower was being redirected toward the war effort. The San Francisco Mint, marked by that small S, was operating under pressure to keep coins circulating while resources were stretched thin. Every coin struck during this time carries that tension. It carries the urgency of a nation at war. And under those conditions, production wasn't just about quantity, it was about survival. When you look at this quarter, the design feels familiar, but the context changes everything. On the obverse, George Washington's profile remains steady, almost symbolic of leadership during uncertain times. Liberty curves above, "In God We Trust," sits beside him, and the date 1943 anchors the coin in one of the most critical years in history. Flip it over, and the eagle spreads its wings across the reverse, clutching arrows and olive branches, surrounded by United States of America and quarter dollar. It's a powerful image, but most people never stop to really see it. The coin's composition tells another part of the story: 90% silver, 10% copper. Real metal, struck during a time when resources were scarce and priorities were shifting. It weighs about 6.25 grams, with a diameter of 24.3 millimeters and a thickness close to 1.75 millimeters. The reeded edge, the girth texture, should still show some definition in fine condition, though years of circulation may have softened it. When you hold it, there's a weight that feels different, like it carries more than just metal. And then there's the S mint mark. Small, easy to miss, but incredibly important. Coins from the San Francisco Mint during wartime often show distinct characteristics, slightly different strike qualities, subtle variations in detail. Collectors don't just glance at that mint mark, they study it. They examine its placement, its sharpness, how it interacts with the surrounding surface. Because that tiny letter can completely change how the coin is understood. Now here's where most people go wrong. They judge the coin too quickly. Fine condition means it has wear, and that wear can make details look softer. Some people see that and assume it's nothing special. Others make an even bigger mistake. They try to clean it. They think they're restoring it, making it look better. But the moment they do that, they erase its originality. That natural surface, that authentic toning, that's what proves the coin hasn't been altered. And once it's gone forever. Never clean this coin, not even slightly. Think about survival for a second. Coins from 1943 weren't just used, they were used hard. Circulation during wartime was intense. Many of these quarters were worn down, lost, or melted over time. The number that still exists today in honest, collectible condition is far smaller than most people realize. And coins with clear details, original surfaces, and that unmistakable S mint mark, those are the ones collectors watch for. And when one shows up, things get serious. Auctions for coins like this aren't always loud, but they're intense. Experienced collectors recognize what they're seeing immediately. They know coins from this era, with this mint mark, don't appear often in preserved condition. So they move carefully, strategically, but with urgency. Because once a coin like this disappears into a private collection, it might not come back out for years. Today, this 1943s Washington quarter in fine condition has reached market values around $350,000. That's not just a high number. That's a life-changing opportunity hiding behind a coin most people would overlook. Hidden wealth, silent fortune. And the truth is, people are still spending these coins without even realizing what they're losing. So what should you do if you come across one? First, stop. Don't treat it like ordinary change. Check the date, 1943. Look closely for that S mint mark. Study the condition, even if it's worn. Feel the weight, examine the edges, and pay attention to the surface. If it looks natural, untouched, original, that's a powerful sign. Then protect it. No cleaning, no polishing, no shortcuts. And take the next step, professional grading. That's how you confirm whether you're holding something ordinary or something extraordinary. Collectors who succeed in this space don't rely on luck. They rely on awareness. They understand that the most valuable coins often look the most normal. They don't rush, they don't assume, and they never alter a coin that survived this long on its own. Because what's coming next? It goes beyond history, beyond condition, beyond even rarity. The next coin is something that makes collectors stop, stare, and question everything they thought they knew. And once you see it, you'll realize just how close you might have been to losing a fortune without ever knowing it. If you've ever tossed a quarter aside because it looked a little strange, a little uneven, maybe even slightly blotchy, then you've already been dangerously close to losing something serious. The 1951 Washington quarter with no mint mark and that unusual block-like layer doesn't behave like a normal coin, and that's exactly why people misread it. They assume it's damaged, defective, or just worn out. But what they don't realize is that this strange surface might be the very thing that turns it into hidden wealth. This is the kind of coin people accidentally spend and regret later when it's too late. Now go back to 1951, because this year sits right in the middle of post-war America rebuilding itself. Industry was expanding fast, money was moving quickly, and the U.S. Mint had one job: keep coins flowing. Philadelphia, producing coins without mint marks, was operating under heavy demand. And when production ramps up like that, subtle things start to happen. Dies begin to fatigue, metal flow becomes slightly inconsistent, and coins start showing textures that weren't planned, but weren't corrected either. That's where coins like this begin to stand out. At first glance, the design feels completely standard. George Washington's profile faces left on the obverse, with liberty above and in God we trust beside him. The date 1951 sits at the bottom, sometimes slightly softened, depending on the strike and wear. Flip it over, and the eagle spreads its wings across the reverse, gripping arrows and olive branches framed by United States of America and quarter dollar. It's a design people recognize instantly, which is exactly why they stop paying attention. But here's where this coin separates itself. That block layer surface, those slightly uneven, almost patchy sections of toning and texture, aren't random. They're the result of how the metal aged over time, interacting with its environment in a way that creates a unique pattern. To an untrained eye, it looks off. To a collector, it's a signal. It suggests the coin hasn't been cleaned, hasn't been polished, hasn't been artificially altered. It's original, and originality is everything. This detail changes everything. The coin itself carries real substance, 90% silver and 10% copper. It weighs around 6.25 grams, with a diameter of approximately 24.3 millimeters and a thickness close to 1.75 millimeters. The reeded edge, the girth texture, should still show some structure if the coin hasn't been excessively worn down. When you hold it, there's a solid, grounded feel that modern coins simply don't have. It feels like it matters, and in this case, it absolutely does. Now here's the mistake that wipes out value instantly: cleaning. People see that uneven surface, that blocky toning, and they think it needs to be fixed. So they scrub it, polish it, try to make it shine. And the moment they do that, they erase the very feature that made it special. That natural surface, those irregular patterns, are proof of authenticity. Once they're gone, the coin becomes just another altered piece. Never clean this coin. Not under any circumstances. Think about survival for a moment. Yes, millions of 1,951 quarters were minted, but how many still exist today with their original surfaces intact? Not many. Over time, coins like this were spent repeatedly, wearing down their details. Others were melted for their silver content. And many were improved by people who didn't understand what they had. What's left now is a smaller pool of coins that still carry their natural, untouched character, and collectors are watching closely. The absence of a mint mark adds another layer of subtlety. Philadelphia coins don't have that identifying letter, which makes them easier to overlook. But for serious collectors, that absence is part of the appeal. It forces a deeper inspection. They look at strike quality, surface texture, and how the toning behaves across the coin. They're not just looking at what's there, they're reading what's been preserved. And when 1,951 no mint mark quarter with that distinct block-like toning appears in the market, it creates a quiet kind of urgency. Experienced collectors recognize it immediately. They know coins like this don't show up often in honest original condition. And when they do, competition builds, focused, deliberate, intense. Because once it's gone into a strong collection, it may not come back out for a very long time. Today, this coin has reached market values around $150,000. That's serious money hiding behind a surface most people would question. A silent fortune disguised as something ordinary or even flawed. And the reality is, coins like this are still out there, being spent, ignored, and lost every single day. So what should you do if you come across one? First, pause. Rarity. Don't dismiss it because it looks unusual. Check the date, 1951. Look for the absence of a mint mark. Study the surface carefully. Those block-like patterns could be the key. Feel the weight, examine the edges, and trust your instincts if something feels different. Then protect it. No cleaning, no polishing, no shortcuts. Keep it exactly as it is. And take the next step, professional grading. That's how you confirm whether you're holding something ordinary or something extraordinary. Collectors who succeed in this world don't chase perfection. They recognize authenticity. They understand that the coins most people ignore are often the ones that matter most. And they never make the mistake of altering something that time has already perfected. Because what's coming next? It's not just rare. It's the kind of coin that makes even experienced collectors stop and question everything. And if you thought missing this one was painful, what comes next might be the biggest loss of all. You've probably held this coin recently, maybe yesterday, maybe this morning, and didn't even think twice. That's what makes the 1,998 Washington quarter with a P mint mark so dangerous. It doesn't look old. It doesn't look rare. It blends in perfectly with modern change, moving through your hands without resistance. And that's exactly how people lose it. Because when something looks this normal, nobody suspects it's carrying serious money right under their fingertips. Now step into 1,998. because this wasn't just another routine year for US coinage. The country was on the edge of a massive transition. The state quarters program was about to launch, and the Philadelphia Mint was pushing production to keep up with a growing, fast-moving economy. Coins were being produced in huge numbers, but speed always comes with consequences. Even in modern times, under pressure, subtle variations happen. Slight differences in strike quality, surface texture, and finish begin to appear, details most people never notice, but collectors absolutely do. At first glance, the design feels completely familiar. On the obverse, George Washington's profile faces left, with liberty above, "In God We Trust" beside him, and the date 1998 below. It looks clean, modern, almost too ordinary to matter. Flip it over, and you see the classic eagle design still in place for this final phase before the state quarters took over. Wings spread wide, arrows and olive branches held tightly, surrounded by United States of America and quarter dollar. It's a design people have seen their entire lives, which is exactly why they stop looking closely. But here's where things shift. The P mint mark, Philadelphia, sits quietly on the coin, often overlooked because it's so common in modern circulation. But not all 1998 P quarters are the same. Some carry subtle characteristics that separate them from the rest. Slight differences in surface preservation, strike sharpness, and how the metal ages over time. In fine condition, where the coin has seen some circulation but still holds its structure, those details become incredibly important. This detail changes everything. Unlike older quarters, this coin isn't silver. It's made from a copper-nickel-clad composition, outer layers of copper-nickel bonded to a pure copper core. It weighs about 5.67 grams, slightly lighter than its silver predecessors, with a diameter of 24.3 millimeters and a thickness around 1.75 millimeters. The reeded edge, the girth texture, should still feel consistent, though circulation can soften it slightly. When you hold it, it feels familiar, and that familiarity is exactly what makes it so easy to ignore. And here's where the biggest mistake happens. People assume modern coins can't be valuable. So they don't check, they don't look closely, they don't protect them, and sometimes they even clean them, thinking it won't matter. But it does. Even with modern coins, original surfaces matter. That natural wear, that untouched finish, that's what collectors look for. Cleaning, polishing, or altering the coin destroys that originality instantly. Never clean this coin, not even lightly. Now think about survival in a different way. This isn't about age, it's about condition and awareness. Millions of 1998 P quarters were minted, but very few people saved them carefully. Most went straight into circulation, getting scratched, damaged, or worn down over time. Finding one in true fine condition with strong details and original surfaces is far less common than people think. And as more coins get damaged or lost, the number of desirable examples continues to shrink. Collectors approach coins like this differently. They're not just looking for age, they're looking for overlooked potential. They study the sharpness of Washington's profile, the clarity of the eagle's feathers, the consistency of the edge. They look for coins that survived modern circulation without being destroyed by it. And when they find one that stands out, they don't hesitate. When a strong example of a 1998 with P Washington quarter in fine condition enters the market, it creates a quiet kind of competition. Not everyone understands it, but those who do move quickly, because they know these coins are often overlooked, undervalued, and disappearing faster than people realize. Once a high-quality piece is locked into a serious collection, it may not return to the market for a long time. Today, this coin has reached market values around $80 zeroth. That's serious money hiding inside a coin people still use every day. A silent fortune moving through pockets, cash registers, and coin jars without anyone noticing. And that's what makes it so powerful and so dangerous to ignore. So what should you do? Start paying attention to every coin you touch. Check the date, 1998. Look for the P mint mark. Study the condition carefully, even if it looks ordinary at first. Feel the weight, examine the edges, and trust your instincts if something feels different. Then protect it. No cleaning, no shortcuts. Keep it exactly as it is. And take the next step, professional grading. That's how you separate a common coin from a hidden opportunity. Because here's the truth, most people never realize. Valuable coins aren't always old, shiny, or obvious. Sometimes they're modern. Sometimes they look completely normal. And sometimes they pass through your hands without you ever knowing what you just lost. And that brings us to the bigger picture. Every coin we covered in this video, from the ones that looked worn and dark to the ones that seemed too modern to matter, has one thing in common. They hide in plain sight. They don't announce themselves. They wait for someone who's paying attention. Hidden wealth, silent fortune, life-changing opportunities sitting in the smallest, most overlooked places. Most people will watch this and forget. They'll keep spending their coins the same way. But a few people, the ones who really understand, will start checking every quarter, every pocket, every jar. And those are the people who find what everyone else misses. So before you leave, go check your coins. Right now. Because the next one you pick up might not just be a quarter. It might be the one that changes everything.